more Grom stuff today, and more Swingarm related Grom stuff today. So we replaced the rear sets previously, and now I'm disassembling the entire thing all over again to take off the Swingarm and replace the Swingarm bushings with these from MNNTHBX. As I mentioned, these are the bronze bushings from MNNTHBX, and basically what these do are replace your OEM bushings, which are rubber mounted. So it gives you much more of a precise fit, so you get much more responsiveness in terms of the suspension and the movement of the swing arm. There's no side-to-side movement or anything like that, pretty much directional, very precise fitting, so you get much more responsive suspension in the rear. So the first step in the installation of this process is obviously getting to the swing arm bushings to remove them so that we can add these ones, which I have already taken care of, as you can see, and as I'll show you. Now that we have the swing arm off, I think it's best, now that we have more access to it, to clean it up because this is incredibly greasy. I'm going to clean up this swing arm as much as possible since I have it off, and at the same time, I'm going to stick these in the freezer. Makes it that much easier for it to sleeve in when it comes time to install. Alright, so now it comes time to pushing out the old bushings so that we can sleeve in the new stuff. What you have to do is fit the sleeve. Now this is from MNNTHBX themselves, this and all of the nuts and bolts here, which is pretty much machine fit to this to make it just that much easier to slide that stuff out. But if you had your own drill press or whatever, I'm sure you could be able to sleeve this out pretty easy. So we're going to do this, take some of the hardware, the long bolt, so that comes through here, sleeve on a steel washer, and then put the nut back on. Basically what we're going to do is tighten this. As we're tightening it, it's going to move up the bolt, which will push the bushing out into this little collar thing here. And so we'll just keep doing that, and then as this bolt comes in, we're just going to add from this array of washers right here to make sure that we still have the bolt accessible here so that we can just tighten it and tighten it and tighten it and just keep going. I'm not going to use an impact wrench. Use wrenches if you're doing this because you want to go slow and steady. Slow and steady is the key here. If you just hit it with an impact, it could be kinked in any way and it could damage the swing arm. You don't want that. So we're going to go slow and steady. That'll win the race.
A few moments later.
Alright, well this is actually going to be a little bit more difficult than I thought. It's a good thing that I'm replacing these because number one thing I can notice is that both of these are pretty trashed. And number two, despite this bike being very well kept and garage held, it didn't really spend much time outdoors besides just the riding of it. Not only are these things trashed, but they're just completely coated in rust. I mean, even right here, the brake line was rubbing on the swing arm right here, and that's rusted out. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's just the design of the swing arm holds water or something like that, or just kind of like the close proximity. In any case, PSA to everyone out there with a Grom or a Monkey, clean your swing arms regularly, and really clean, like at the point of connection, not just down here where it's easy to get to. All right, we're moving this party to the floor so I get some more leverage than I would have on the table. In addition to that, I even had to go out and get a brand new 19mm socket here because my socket was a deep socket and it was a 3/8" drive, so I had a smaller leverage point here. This is the 1/2" drive, so I get to use my big breaker bar. Good Lord, what a nightmare it was getting those old bushings out of there. I actually stripped this thing completely to the point where I had to cut it off. So this bolt did come with the bushings, so thankfully this was my bolt to destroy, not the installation tools. But even so, from the installation tool, which has been used before, you can tell here as well, the threads were pretty beaten up. So in order to maintain this one, I actually had to rethread everything, like every time I put it on and tightened it. Now on to install, and I already installed this side, and it's thankfully so much easier than getting these things out. First thing, grease up the new side that we're gonna put this in, just to clean it up as well as give it something to help slide in, make it nice and easy for us. This is nice and frosty, and it's going to go on this side, so the flange is going to go on the outside like you see here. There's a couple of different pieces that the install has, like these metal pieces with flanges. It's pretty easy to see which side goes where based on the diameter. Through these two flanges, and then we're going to put a bunch of washers in here, and then just like we did with the removal, except kind of the opposite. Now we're going to tighten this. As we tighten this, this sleeve will go right in. And if it's anything like the other side was, this will be super easy. I didn't even have to use the breaker bar side, I just used the ratchet on the open-ended wrench, so let's see what we get. It's almost all the way in, so this little inner diameter, we just need to flip that out so that way it can go all the way in. Put a couple washers back on here and tighten it the last little bit. There we go. It's in. Last step is to actually fit the bronze portion of this, so this sandwiches outside here. It's pretty easy to tell which one goes where based on the flange size. So the larger size obviously goes to the larger flange, smaller goes to the inner sides. There we have it, full install, finally. Now let's throw this onto the bike. We have the swing arm back in, nothing else yet, but I wanted to show you this as I have torqued the swing arm bolt 40 pounds, and look at that, it moves so freely already. Comparatively, before I took this off with the old bushings in there, this would not really move freely. You had to really put some effort into this when it was still torqued down in order for it to move, which means it was kind of being restricted, kind of limiting my suspension setup. So with this, I think it's going to feel a lot better, a lot smoother, and just that much more in terms of responsiveness. So I'm going to keep going, put the shock on here, and put the wheel back together, all that good stuff, and try it out. So I've ridden this around for a few dozen miles or so, a couple days, and can't really tell a difference. But that's not to say there's no impact to this whatsoever. I think the biggest difference was shown with the swing arm on, torque down, but no tire. Just showing the movement there with the new bushings and with the old bushings was dramatic. It was so much more free-flowing with the new stuff rather than the old stuff, which was almost like there was no bushings in there at all. And just knowing that those old bushings that were so trashed were replaced with something that's much less restrictive, that alone is worth it. All good, so thanks for watching.